Hey guys, what's up and welcome to my channel. And like my last video, I'm gonna be starting a new series this week, and that is my guide to DIYs. So I've had that jingle in my head for 2 years now, and I feel like it's about time I actually just go ahead and start this series. And this series is for all of you guys that want to learn how to do some DIY stuff. So think of this as, sewing tutorials, art tutorials, building tutorials. I plan on doing a video about different design styles, all different types of stuff. I slowly want to turn this into the ultimate guide to DIYing, kind of no matter what the DIY is. I don't plan on covering one thing more than the other. I'm just gonna be covering it all. And if you're new here and you're thinking, who is this girl? Hi, I'm Lee. Hence the My's Guide to DIYs. I'm an artist, I'm a seamstress, I'm a builder, I'm a designer, definitely a jack of all trades, master of none. I just love learning how to make things. I love learning new skills, and over my 30 years of life, I've definitely learned a lot of skills. Definitely not a professional at any of them, but I've picked up a lot of basic knowledge on a lot of stuff, yes. And I also want to start this series because I really want to learn from you guys. I definitely don't know it all, so I just want this series to be a community of people sharing their DIY knowledge with each other. So now that all of that is established, let's talk about tools. So for this first video, I decided I'm just gonna keep it pretty general. This is gonna be an ongoing series. We can do a deep dive into more specific things in future videos. And today I'm just gonna be talking about some of my favorite tools that I use for DIYing. And I'm gonna start off with the 5 basic tools that I think anybody needs to get started building some stuff. And then I'm gonna talk about some of the projects I was able to do using these 5 basic tools. So first up, we have the 2 beginner saws that I recommend. This is the circular saw and this is the jigsaw. I had these 2 saws for about a year and a half of building things before I got a miter saw, and then I think like a year or 6 months after that, I got a table saw. The one thing I hear all the time about these saws, or the downside to these saws, is that you can't get a straight cut, and you definitely can get a straight cut with these 2 saws. You just have to get a few things or know a few tips and tricks on how to get a straight cut. So if you wanted to cut down a big sheet of plywood, I would recommend getting the Kreg Rip Cut. That is a jig that attaches really easily to your circular saw, and you're able to get nice straight cuts using your circular saw and cutting down a giant sheet of plywood. And a lot of people that have a table saw still prefer or recommend using a rip cut with a circular saw. It's just a lot safer if you don't have an outfeed table. And also, if you want to cut through, say, a 2x4 or a 1x4 or a 1x10 or just some standard piece of lumber, what you can do is get a carpenter square and use that. So you can either hold or clamp the carpenter square to the board and then use it to get a nice straight cut. I actually did that a ton when I was doing my in-laws closet makeover. It was a lot easier than trying to feed a giant sheet of plywood through my table saw. So I highly recommend that. And the other reason that I also recommend a jigsaw on top of a circular saw is because this can get some nice circular or irregular cuts. And I ended up getting this pretty quickly after getting this one because I needed both to get the job done. Okay, so these next 2 Okay, so my next 2 tools, pretty self-explanatory. We've got a drill and a sander. So you've got a way to cut wood, and now you need a way to clean up those cuts, smooth out the wood, and also put the wood together. So a lot of my tools are cordless, but getting tools with a cord, like my jigsaw, can make it cheaper. And honestly, sometimes I wish there was a cord on my sander because I do a lot of projects that require a lot of sanding, and it gets annoying constantly having to switch out the battery. And last for this list of 5 tools, this next thing isn't a power tool, but it is a tool nonetheless. And if you've you've been a subscriber for a while, you might know what's coming. It's my Kreg pocket hole jig. Is it the right way? It's the right way. Okay, so this is my Kreg pocket hole jig. And if you don't know what a pocket hole is, it's basically a drilled out hole that you use to screw two pieces of wood together. And it's a much stronger hold than screwing through a piece of wood right into the end of a piece of wood. And I will put in clips so that makes sense. I did a ton of projects before I had this thing, and a lot of those projects did not hold up. So I love my Kreg jig. And speaking of Kreg, guys, I am so incredibly excited. I can't believe I get to announce this. I am working with Kreg. I am now a Kreg partner, and I officially, as of I think today, have my first project plan up on Kreg. So my mom's vanity that I designed out and built, those plans are up on Kreg's website. I will put the link in the description down below. And in March, my in-laws' secret door that I designed and built, those plans will also be up on KregTools.com. And I can't believe I get to say that. So now that I got that out of the way, I mentioned it, let's talk about some other projects that I was able to do using these 5 tools. So I think my top project that I did using these 5 tools, and that is the banquette in my kitchen that has made such a difference in my kitchen and the layout. It just makes way more sense to have the dining space pushed up into the corner. It has completely changed the function and layout of my kitchen, and I absolutely love it, and I did it using these tools. So next up is the project that made me get a jigsaw, because I had to get a jigsaw because I had to do round cuts, and that is a small round ottoman that I built for my screened-in patio. I used all of these tools to do the other stuff, but I needed to have a jigsaw to do some circular cuts, and I love that ottoman. It's held up great. It still looks exactly the same, and it was a really fun and very beginner-friendly project. And finally, one of my other favorite beginner-friendly projects that I made was a headboard for my bedroom. I used my circular saw, my sander, and my drill for that project. I love that headboard, and it's a very, very easy beginner-friendly project to do with these tools. Editing Miley here. I just realized with the 3 projects I mentioned, you also need a staple gun to do all of those projects. It's not a power tool, but it is another tool I recommend, and mine was like $10. So I know you can get them nice and cheap, and the staples are like a few extra dollars. Okay, bye. So now I'm going to talk about just a few tools that I either had, and I'm really glad I had them, but they're just, beyond the 5 basic tools, or they're tools that I kind of wish I had on my radar a little bit sooner than I did. Just because there are definitely some tools that helped me level up my projects very quickly. This next tool, in my opinion, is a power tool because you have to hook it up to electricity to use it. So I don't want to hear any ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a power tool. My sewing machine. I'm pretty sure I said this in a TikTok video, but in the building, interior design, home decor world, the sewing machine is really slept on. I don't think people really utilize it as much as they should. We've got the builder people over here, we've got the sewing people over here, and the two never meet. Well, not on this channel. We're doing it all. I love my sewing machine, and knowing how to sew is probably one of the things that has saved me the most amount of money. Because, think about it. Your house is probably like 50% fabric. I'm not at your house, but I'm guessing it's like 50% fabric at least. And especially within interior design sewing, it's a lot of straight lines. It's not usually anything too complicated. Sewing for clothes and to fit a human body, that's a little bit more complicated. But sewing to fit a square cushion, not that hard. So don't sleep on this tool. She's lovely, she's great, she's Miss United States. Okay, moving on. So I know I mentioned my drill already, but I love my impact driver. I love this thing so much. I find myself reaching for this a lot more than I find myself reaching for my drill. I'm not a super strong person, so if you're like me and you're not super strong, impact driver, because there's a little bit more power behind this. So when I'm doing my big projects and I'm doing a big build and I am trying to get a screw in an awkward spot where I don't have a lot of leverage or muscle behind it, I use my impact driver because it kind of adds the muscle where I don't have any. Also, because the body is a lot shorter compared to a drill, you can get into like tighter spots. And so yeah, I just use my impact driver all the time and I absolutely love this thing. Guys, I'm really not meaning to do this, but I'm turning into a DeWalt commercial. So next up is my oscillating multi-tool. Here, let me pop a battery in it to show you kind of how it works. This is a blade that is sticking straight out and it vibrates and you can cut through a lot of things. This tool comes in handy more than you think it's going to. The first time I ever used this was when I was working on redoing the floors in my basement, and it was just a light bulb moment. I used it and I was like, now I understand why people rave about this tool. It's incredible, and you kind of just need to use it and work with it to understand how incredible it is and how handy it is. So this final tool is definitely something you don't need right away, but I personally wish I had it sooner rather than later, and that is a nail gun. I have a pneumatic nail gun, so there is an air compressor with this thing, but that's way too heavy to carry up the stairs and put on my desk. You could also get an electric nail gun. I've never used one, but I hear great things. And the amount of projects I am able to do and the detailed work I'm able to do because of a nail gun is so much nicer than, say, screws and a drill or a nail and hammer. Also, I know I kind of already made this joke that I'm a commercial for DeWalt tools, but get whatever tools or brand are within your budget. I only have DeWalt because my husband likes DeWalt. I actually grew up in Brookfield, Wisconsin, which is where the headquarters for Milwaukee Tools is. So I personally only ever grew up hearing about Milwaukee Tools because that just seems to be the tool everybody in the state of Wisconsin uses. So pick and choose what works within your budget. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because I just see so many comments from people where they're being tool snobs, and that is icky. Don't do that. So now that I've mentioned the 9 tools that I recommend for beginners and the tools that I think you should have on your radar as a beginner, I'm gonna also mention some digital tools that I use to plan out all of my projects. So these 2 programs that I use, I don't use one over the other. I kind of use them in tandem, and I use them together because they're both great for planning out projects. The first is a website that I've definitely heard other DIYers and YouTubers mention, and that is Milanote. You can use Milanote on your computer, your tablet, your phone, and it's a place where you can organize all of your pictures and notes and links for a project. And the other program that I use all the time, I've definitely mentioned this program in other videos, but I get this question all the time, what do I use to do my 3D renderings? And that is Room Planner. It's a very, very easy drag and drop program. I didn't have to spend hours upon hours learning how to use it. It's super easy. I absolutely love it. And the 3D rendering quality is insane, at least in my opinion. I think it's insane. So I use Milanote and Room Planner together to create all of my plans. And actually, I just use these 2 programs to design out a space for one of you. Yes, one of my subscribers recently reached out to me to design out a room in her house. I, of course, said yes, because I love designing rooms. I love designing for other people. So using Room Planner, I was able to come up with a 3D rendering to send to her. And then I was able to use Milanote to add in all of the inspiration photos I used to come up with the design, all of the 3D renderings that I put together using Room Planner. And then I was able to also add links to everything that she would need to get to achieve the 3D rendering look. And that is basically how I design and plan out all of my projects, and these 2 programs make make it super duper easy to plan and execute your projects. And that is it, guys. Those are just some of the tools that I recommend to get started DIYing. And if you are a DIYer, I would love to know if there are some other tools that you would recommend. And also, I would love to know what you guys want to see me cover within this series. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.